How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. How's the weekend going thus far?
So far, so good.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so can you start off by like giving a brief introduction of yourself and like what you do and what your goals are for this current situation we are facing as of right now?
Sure. My name is
Okay.
Houyeleet Thiam. I am from Mauritania. I have been living in the US for about 17 years. I uh, professionally I'm a social worker and I work for the state of Ohio. My background is in public administration, but also social work. As far as Mauritania goes, I am involved with a couple of organizations. One of the organizations is a human rights organization that's based here in the US. It's called Mauritanian Network for Human Rights. And what we do is basically we focus on advocacy and information or education. I'm also the president and CEO of a nonprofit organization called Youth and Hope, which helps Mauritanian former refugee children go to school by providing them with school supplies and then basically a little scholarships, things like that. That's what I do as far as Mauritania go. And I'm also, of course, politically, I'm involved. And what we're fighting for is to get justice and equality in Mauritania.
Okay, that's great. Now, we talk about this so often about the marginalization of the Black African population of Mauritania. Now, can you like explain certain things that are going on today, right now, as like we speak in Mauritania in regards to the marginalization of Black Africans and also like the reaction of so-called human rights advocates from anywhere. You can be from France, from United States, in addressing these situations.
Sure, there are different layers of discrimination, racial discrimination, and all kinds of discrimination that's going on in Mauritania right now. Of course, we still have slavery, which is the biggest. So there is a part of the population which are the Haratins that are facing slavery. And when we say slavery, we mean slavery. We mean people owning people, people making people work for free, people sexually and physically abusing people without nothing happening at that. People owning other people's children, having the right to them just because these are their slaves. So this is slavery at truly slavery as defined, not modern slavery, but slavery. So that's one end of the discrimination. Then we have the Afro-Mauritanians, which are the Fulanis, the Wolofs, and a little bit of Bambras that we have, and the Soninkes. And what they're facing is racial discrimination where they are not respected. Culture is not put equally in, with the Arabic culture. They are not in the decision-making spheres. In school, when their children go, their children fail because they are forced to learn Arabic, which is not their language, and everyone wants to learn their own language. Everyone wants to feel like the country is proud of them. And these people don't feel that. And sometimes that affects the self-esteem of these kids that go to school as well. Additionally, all of the economy is in one ethnic group's hands. So economically, there's discrimination as well. In all of the biggest posts or all of the decision-making spheres are in one tribal group's hands. So that's another discrimination. And the third discrimination is basically the forcing of showing Mauritania as an Arabic country, and which is starting to work because now if you talk to someone who's outside of the US, especially in the Middle Eastern people, if you tell them I'm Mauritanian, they expect you to speak Arabic. They don't think of you as a Mauritanian who might not be able to speak Arabic because the politics have been to widen Mauritania, quote unquote, to make sure that the world sees Mauritania as an Arabic country, as a white country, Arab country. And the second portion of your question is why haven't the Western or the so-called Western nations done anything about it? They know about it, definitely, because we've been writing letters, we've done everything we can. There's been a lot of information out there about it. So, Human Rights Watch, which is one of the biggest organizations in the world, has extensively written about the racial discrimination in Mauritania. But the West hasn't done much. Not France, not the U.S., not even the African countries that are next door to us. Countries such as Senegal know that we have slaves in it, like the people have slaves in their country next door. But again, like I used to say, or like I like to say usually, nations usually don't have friends. They don't know what's right or what's wrong. They don't usually act on what's right, what's wrong. Usually, what nations act on is what their interests are. So they don't have friends, they have interests. Most of the time, that's what happened, and that's very, very unfortunate.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Now we talk about the economic discrimination. We know that Mauritania is full with natural resources. Um, so are those basically natural resources being cultivated towards the quote unquote whites? And what I mean by whites are the Berber Arabs, and just circulated around their smaller circles and not put towards the bigger population, which happens to just be us.
Yes, Mauritania has plenty of natural resources. And if it was, if all the natural resources that Mauritania have been like spread out equally among its citizens, probably no Mauritania would need to immigrate anywhere. No Mauritania would even need to work because we have plenty for a country of just 5 million people or a little less than that. But what's happening is, as I said before, the white Moors are the ones who have all the wealth. They hold the country in strike, basically, a hostage, and they have all the wealth. They do what they want with it, and they are basically have this system set up where in all of the key positions are held by them. And even if someone who's a Mauritanian, a black Mauritanian would like to, for example, open a big business, like what they won't allow you to get to a certain level. It's all locked up pretty much for some people. They're watching everybody to make sure that people don't get to their level. If you would like to become like a president of a bank, that's not gonna happen. If you immigrate somewhere in the US or Europe and you come back with a lot of money, you wanna open a bank, you wanna do something for your country, you wanna uh, just do some kind of business that's gonna help you and your community. You're allowed to do all like open a shop in the corner and things like that. But if you get to the high level businesses, they will block you because that's what their agenda is. They don't want anyone else to be wealthy to get to where they're able actually to compete with them financially. So that because they're afraid, they are not secure, and that's one of the problems.
And now that you say that they are afraid, now do you think in your heart of hearts that they are afraid that the reality of Mauritania being that is include when you include the Haratin and the other Black African groups that they are the, or I should say that we are the majority and they are a minority, and they're afraid that the majority will somehow empower themselves and basically change basically turn things upside down.
Absolutely, absolutely. They're afraid for two reasons. They're afraid because they're wrong, and they know deep down in their heart of hearts that you can be wrong every now and then, but you cannot stay wrong and want to build an empire that's based in torture, that's based in lies, that's based in dishonesty, that's based in discriminating against your brother next door. You can't keep that empire like that forever. They know in their hearts of hearts that at some point this is gonna go down. It's not going to continue to go up. At some point, it's going to reach a height where it's no longer going to go up, and it's going to come down on them, and it's going to come down bad. So that's one of the reasons why they're afraid. And the second reason is what you said. Again, they know that the majority are blacks. If you put the Haqqanis and the Afro-Mauritanians, quote unquote, together, they're about 75%. And you could tell the government is afraid, because in every census, like we've had so many censuses, we've had one that I remember in 98, we've had one in 2010, and we've had one in before that. All of the census results are kept secret. No one really knows up to this point how many Mauritanians there are. People are just guessing that it's about 5 million Mauritanians, but we can't get the specific numbers because they will not publish these censuses. We can't get the real numbers of how many blacks we have, how many Haqqanis, how many Afro-Mauritanians, how many Moors. Because if they release those numbers, they know, people will know for sure officially from the government that the black portion is bigger. And
yeah,
so basically they're in denial, and they are in denial.
yeah. Now, I always had this conversation with my dad. He always said that, you know, these Bidan, they got the ideas that they have right now mostly from like Gulf countries, you know, and things like that. They got this complex superiority complex for like Gulf countries. And I'm wondering, in your opinion, like, where do you think they got it? Do you think it came from the French, like basically saying, "Hey, we're gonna put you guys in charge, and you guys are still ahead, but we're like really at the top, you're still better," or is it a deeper historical background to the way they are, you know, the Bidanis?
I mean, there is a lot of speculations. Again, we don't really know the facts, but we know that what we know is when the French left after the colonization in when the Mauritania had its independence in 1960, when the French left, they made sure that they left the power in the hands of the Moors. That was a French agenda. So they started this issue. They're not walking away scratch free in this. They started this. Now, am I gonna continue to blame the French today about what they're doing to their own Muslim brothers and sisters? No. But the French were the beginner of this system of discrimination that's been there for more than 50 years. As far as what your dad said about them getting these ideas from the Gulf countries and the Arabic countries, Arab countries in general, I see one of the roots of the issue is they want to be more, there is a superiority complex, or there is a complex that they have vis-a-vis of the Arabs, the so-called Arab countries. Because from what what I heard, again, these are not facts, but what I've been told is that those people don't look at them as if they are Arabs, because the way the Moor sounds is slightly different. It could be a dialect of the Arabic language, but it's not really an authentic Arabic language. And at some point, they even rejected them from the Arab leagues and things like that. So they are trying to prove themselves to those people, and in doing so, they are trying to be more royal than the the actual royals, which are the Arabs in this case. So in doing so, they are trying to widen this country, quote unquote, to really remove anything that they might think is not Arab from the country, to show these the Arabic components of the world, or Arab components, that Mauritania is an Arabic country. And they think in their sick minds that by removing the part, or by discriminating them, or by putting them down, not to be known that they exist, maybe at somehow, some way, they will earn their honorary place in this Arab world.
Yeah. And we know it goes back for a while now that this has been occurring. I mean, even Mokhtar Ould Dada kind of started it. But can we get into the, like, how Muawiyah would Taha, kind of speeded up the process in his reign, because a lot of people don't know that, and I tell my friends all the time, sometimes my friends don't believe me, but I tell them that he's the Hitler of West Africa. I tell them that all the time. I mean, can you go into like some of the things that he did in order to speed up that process, including some of the things that he had ordered in the whole Wulata in 1960?
Yeah, basically, it all started in '86, where a few black intellectual Mauritanians wrote a book called The Manifesto of the Oppressed Black Mauritanian, Le Manifeste du Negro Mauritanien opprimé in French. And they were able to spread it out, and they were able to distribute the book outside the country. So one day, Taya was at a conference, and he started talking about apartheid in South Africa, and what's his name? Thomas Sankara said, "You can't talk about that. You can't talk about apartheid in South Africa when you have wars in your country." And Mawia looked at him with his eyes wide open, like, "What are you talking about?" And he pulled his book that had all these facts that was explaining the statistics numbers. It was very shocking that not only people were able to actually write a book, because that he doesn't expect people to have I guess, that high quality intellectual knowledge, but also how did they get a chance to spread it out in a way that even someone like Thomas Sankara was able to get a hold of this book. So when he came back to the country, of course, he was furious, and within 24 to 48 hours, he was able to catch every one of those people. And then within a week, they were tried, and of course, they were tried for everyone 6 years in jail. But it wasn't really jail. What they wanted to happen to these people was to die, pretty much, because they put them in Walara, which is one of the worst prisons in the world. It's in the middle of rocks, nowhere, and it's hot. And for at least a couple of years, the first couple of years before the international people got involved, they were feeding them white rice. Basically, it's rice and water. And once they finish the rice, cooking the rice, they would take sand, and then they put it over the rice, mix it up, and then basically have these people eat that. And also, they would have them go and get their own water with chains on their legs, chained to each other. They have them get these buckets, go up mountains, get water, come down mountains with chains on their legs, chains to each other, and then that's the only water they can get to drink. If they don't go get it, then so be it. So of course, a lot of them died. Some of them got sick, and then it was a lot of stuff that happened. So in addition to that, he killed about 1990. Taya killed about 500 black militaries, because he felt like they were part of the issue too. Because in '87, 3 black Mauritanian militaries tried to do a coup to change what happened, because they saw their brothers and sisters got caught one by one and taken to Walara for years, and then they knew what was going on with the torture, the discrimination, and the people dying there and just being buried like animals, pretty much, without even their families being notified. And so the 3 militaries tried to do the coup. Of course, they got caught. They got put to death too, of course, within a few days. And then after that, he started to mistrust the militaries in the blacks in the military, and he started to take them one by one. And of course, the worst of the worst was when he caught 28 black Mauritanians and killed them on November 27th, the eve of the independence, to celebrate Mauritanian independence in 1990. I mean, that's the epicenter of evil. It can't get worse than that. Killing your own people to celebrate a country's independence. 28 black Mauritanians. And that's in addition to the ones that were deported. There was some issue with Senegal in 1989, and of course he used that and deported his own people. It was about 60,000 Mauritanians that were black Mauritanians that were deported to Senegal, about 40 in Mali, and it just never ends. There are widows who never knew where their husbands went. They were told they went on a work trip and they never came home. And they can't even face these widows and these orphans who've seen their dads go to work and their husbands go to work and then they never came home. They can't even face them to tell them what happened to their husband. They still tell them these people went to work, to a work trip. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. So that's grosso modo what happened during the Thai era, which was one of the worst, like you said.
Now, you said something that like I was afraid that I didn't even know until now. So
I
you
think
mean to
there's
tell me that?
something with your volume. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
No, still.
It. Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay. Now you said something that it kind of like now kind of hits the spot. You mean to tell me there were women in Ulata as well?
No, the wives of the people who died, the widows,
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
were
Okay.
not in Malata, but their husbands were, and they lost their husbands
Okay.
to facing this administration. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I thought that they actually took them there too. And that's another point. I mean, we know that there's slavery and stuff like that. How during the Taya reign, how did the women fare? Like, did they just decide now, okay, well, we're doing this to the males, so we might as well like capture the females too and turn them into servants as well? Did that occur?
No, that did not occur. Except if you're talking about the Hatanis whose women are always, of course, enslaved and
Yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah,
all kinds of
yeah.
sense. But they did not really
Okay.
do that to wives of the ones who in prison, and they did not. But when the women decided to come out, of course, and demonstrate and ask for what happened, to demand explanations of what happened to their husbands, of course,
Yeah.
they got brutalized, they got beaten, they got put in jails too at some point, but it wasn't like long jails. They beat them, did all kinds of stuff. They tortured them a little bit too. Yeah, but it wasn't like
Hmm.
long sentences.
Hmm. Now, and I've researched this so many times. I've went and looked at different fatwas and stuff like that and everything, and there's nothing like Islamically that sanctions slavery that they are doing right there. There's nothing at all. There's absolutely nothing. I've searched head to toe, and even like the fact that when a slave baby is born and is born into slavery, that's completely wrong as well. And I've searched everywhere to see if there's any justification for that. Now, is it the case that for the Bidanis, that since they know Arabic and most of the Black African groups don't know Arabic, they just manipulate it in such a way that they say, okay, well, we know the Arabic, so this is why we can do what we're doing?
Yeah, it's definitely a case of using Islam to do things that God didn't ask for. Again, like you said, you could search till tomorrow, you will never find any justification if you're using the Quran. There are some hadiths out there that, of course, no one knows who wrote them. They're not authentic. That says something about the legality of slavery. But if we're talking about the book, there is nothing in the book that really justifies what's happening. The only thing that justifies what's happening in Mauritania is the fact that they are evil. Like, these people are evil. Like, how can you do this to your own brother and sister? Someone who lives in the same country as you, whose kids go to school, to the same school as your kids, who you see every night, I mean, every day, even if you don't live with them, you still see them. They are your countrymen and women compats, and you still want to do this to them. That's just being evil, being mean spirited, and being self-centered. Because at the end of the day, what they worry about is their kingdom. They want to keep it the way it is. They want to keep the status quo. They don't want anyone else to come even near to where they are, because they are afraid that that person might take away their power, that might take away their wealth, that might take away this and that. But coming back to the religious piece, what they're doing is simple. They're opening the book, they're using what they want, and they are leaving the rest. They are changing things to fit their own agenda. So if you can't tell me you are a Muslim if you kill your own people during the Ramadan, who are Muslim, who are fasting, that got put to death. You can't be a Muslim and say you're doing this because of God. That's impossible. That's nonsense. That's not true. Additionally, God, just because you speak Arabic doesn't mean you're a better Muslim than me. We don't have to speak Arabic to be Muslims. Because God said in his book that the person that's closest to me, that's dearest to me, is the person who worships me the best, the most. God said, I've created all of you in different races, in different languages, in different ethnic groups, so that you're able to come together, talk to each other, and connect. He could have made us all white. He could have made us all black. He could have made us all Chinese. But he decided to make us all different races, different genders, different ethnic groups, because he saw the beauty in diversity. So you can't go against that and say you're doing God's work. That's absolutely nonsense.
And that's another thing, because when people find out that I'm Mauritania, and I even met a Bidan, and I called him out on it. I said, what's happening back there is not right. It's not sanctioned in Islam and stuff like that. And he was just kind of in denial. Like, he was like, oh, well, it doesn't go on anymore. It's in the past. Why don't you get over the past and stuff like that? So what I'm getting at is, has there even been any Bidani who's like actively taken a role in trying to stop and trying to in trying to educate his people on like what they're doing, and and if so, has he or she, whoever the case may be, been punished, or because and again, I was talking to another guy who actually served in the army, and he told me, well, we didn't agree with what's going on, but we couldn't do anything about it. And I'm like, and I'm thinking in my head, like, yeah, you could have did something about it, but you didn't want to do anything about it. You guys outnumber the president. The army obviously outnumbers the president. You could have easily did something.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another piece to this whole story, because what ended slavery in the U.S., when you look at history, were not the blacks. The blacks fought, but there were white people who were fighting alongside them, who did not want this country to continue to go the way it is. Now, I'm gonna give credit to, of course, all the civil rights movements and things like that, but they've had white people along their side too that were fighting with them, trying to help. You don't see that in Mauritania. Of course, there is a few more, few and far between, that would write about it every now and then and say, I'm not with this. I don't like discrimination. I don't like racism. But words are cheap. Don't just sit there and write about it. Go out there and protest. If you see black people protesting for their rights, if you feel like this is the right thing, if you feel like this country is going downhill because of all the stuff that's happening, you should come out and stand up for what's right. Just because you're human, just because these are your fellow Muslim brothers and sisters. But you don't tell me when I talk to you. And again, you said you called somebody out on it. We should. People should, when they see them, call them out on it, because they have been silent. And silence is pretty much being accomplice. If you see things going wrong every day in your country, and you see people you call friends sometimes going through this nonsense, and you can't even protest against it. You can't do anything about it, and then you are just as bad as the person who's doing it. I am not with it or I'm against it is not enough. When you live in a country where all this injustice, all this racial discrimination is happening, and at the end of the day, they think they're doing it to us, but they're doing it to themselves too. Because this country, if we don't do something about it, it's going to go in flames. It's just a matter of time. So when we lose, when they let it get to that point, they're going to be losers too. So people need to be smart enough and start to really do something about it. And the people that actually have something, have a say, and are on the cap of the power. And I don't know when that's supposed to happen or when that's going to happen, but it needs to start happening. As far as the people who tortured people in Walata, and that's the same story. They will tell you, I was told to do this. And what I always tell them is, if the president had told you to go up a 25th floor and jump, would you do it? Of course, the answer is no. So you did it because deep down you really wanted to do it. Maybe you can't deal with your conscience now. That's why you're trying to blame somebody who's high up who told you to do it. But you had a choice. At the nitty-gritty of things, when we get down to the things, they had a choice to kill that person or not, to torture that person or not, to take a handful of sand and put it in somebody's rice. They had a choice, and they chose to do it. And that's what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah. And now getting back to like what's going on today, I recently found out that like in Zanzibar a while ago that they had like a revolution, and what that revolution did is, you know, the Omanis used to run Zanzibar. They used to have like a basically a monarchy, but they managed to be successful in overthrowing it. And I'm thinking to myself that, you know, what's the probability of that maybe happening over there? You know what I mean? Like, is there any movements over there that are organized enough to make something like that occur?
There are people who are fighting, but compared to the regime, they have no power. It's going to be very tough to get something as far as, aside from politics, you know, do like a revolution or something like that. It's kind of difficult because of how powerful the regime is. And if all of the blacks had come together, somehow maybe that would help. But they also are there's different political parties that are fighting against the same thing that should unite that haven't done that yet. There is something in the works that they are going to come together somehow and become one movement or one organization that's going to fight for the same thing. That's going to help. But right now, if you look at the people who are fighting this beast, it's just the chances are very slim.
Now, I'm gonna wrap it up a little bit. What can like we do here do from afar to like do our part, basically? You know, what can be done, like, so that the viewers can know what steps to take, basically.
There is a few things people can do. First, we can find Mauritanian organizations who are here, who are trying to help people back home. There's people trying to advocate for Mauritanians here. Even now, there are so many Mauritanians that are being deported back to Mauritania. There are organizations that are fighting against that. Because when you take someone here and you deport them back to Mauritania, basically you're taking them to hell. And that needs to stop. Trump administration needs to stop, pretty much. Secondly,
I wanted to ask, like, have there been a lot that have been deported?
Lately, yes. Since the Trump administration took office, there's been about, I think it's 49 who's been deported, and it's about 80 in jail. And they haven't done much besides the fact that they are here without residency or legal status. just being put in jail by ICE. They're being brutalized by ICE. And the ones who are being deported are pretty much being deported, like I said, to hell, because the Mauritanian embassy is working with the Trump administration, giving these people what they call a laissez-passer, that so that
Mm-hmm.
ICE put them on the airplane. But when they get to Mauritania, Mauritania doesn't recognize them because, of course, they haven't had the papers from the latest census. So they go to they live here and then they go to become stateless. They're not officially Mauritanians, but they're able to be deported to Mauritania. They're probably going to end up either being in prison in their own home because they can't go out. If you go out, the police would uh, say all kinds of stuff and try to take you out of the country because they don't feel like you're from there. Some of them get caught from the airport and are taken straight to jail. And it's all kinds of things that are happening with that. So that needs to stop. We need to get a hold of your senator, somebody's senator, the administration, ICE officials. Even Royal Air Maroc is part of the deal because Royal Air Maroc is the one who's deporting all these people. And we are trying to get on Royal Air Maroc to see if Royal Air Maroc need to stop this because if they're not, they are part of the conflict too. So we are putting together some protests in front of their headquarters, their embassies, to make sure to let them know they need to stop this, that they're part of the issue too. So that's a separate issue that needs to stop. And also, the only way Mauritania is going to change is through pressure. If we're talking about change peacefully, because we have the Commission for Foreign Affairs, we have the State Department, we have all of the officials who are here who know what's happening, but they're not really doing anything. People are talking about North Korea and all the pressure they're doing, putting over them economically to make sure they change their behavior. Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they cutting foreign aid to Mauritania? Why are they giving this administration all this money to fight terrorism in Sahel or whatever? So just so those people can turn around and pocket their millions and kill their own people. So there is so much people can do just by reaching out to their own elected officials who are here, who are in touch with the Mauritanian regime, who know what's happening, but aren't really doing anything about it. Those people need to be held accountable. So those are one of the few things is to get the word out there, reach out to elected officials in all kinds of ways, and also help the nonprofits that are helping the children at least be able to have an education, or those organizations that might be working with women to help them put a business together, or just find a way to survive in a country that has no regard, no respect against them or their race.
Um. Now, what about like, do you want to give your information out as far as like how people can contact you and how people can help your organizations and stuff like that, and and maybe possibly connect people in like a different state with people who are helping in what you're trying to do. Do you want to give your information?
Sure. The organization that I work with is Mauritania Human Rights, Mauritania Network for Human Rights. That's one organization that's advocating for Mauritanians. And the nonprofit that I lead that's helping people in Mauritania, children, and especially go to school is called Youth and Hope. And you could find us on Facebook, Youth and Hope. You could find me on Twitter at Girl FPC, or on Facebook at Houyeleet, Houleypeet, Cham, Thiam. You can assist our organization by either donating to sponsor a child, because we are trying to assist children who pretty much have no means to get an education because they don't have the school supplies. You have parents who have no resources to even give the child a notebook or a pen to go to school. So that's where we come in, where we support these kids, we give them books, pens, through sponsorship of people, through fundraising here. So basically what people do is they sponsor a child or children. We give them the name of these kids. They have a phone number if they want to reach out to these kids to make sure this money is getting to where it's supposed to get. And then they say, I would like to sponsor a child. We give a certain amount. and then this money is sent back home. Or people can also donate school supplies if they want, and those school supplies are shipped to these kids so that these kids can actually go to school, have the necessary school supplies. Something else we are trying to put together right now is to get a scholarship program or a stipend program for the people who are actually going back to Senegal half of the time to continue their studies because they went back to Mauritania, but they couldn't enroll in the latest semester, so they can't enroll in Mauritanian education. They have to leave their parents in Mauritania, go to Senegal just to be able to continue their studies. Half of the time, the parents don't even have the money to pay for the transportation, so they have to walk miles to get somewhere to even get to where they're supposed to go. So we're trying to come up with some kind of a fund to give these kids money for transportation to get to Senegal, and once they get there, to be able to buy food and just survive while they're going to school. So we're trying to remove barriers to education. Additionally, there is classrooms in the villages that we work with that need painting, that need help, need roofing fix and all kind of things that we are working on fixing. They need chairs to sit on. Children are sitting on the floor writing things down, which is not convenient at all. We're trying to put all kind of, some money together to help them at least get chairs and tables where they can sit down and actually be able to take notes. So we also in the future would like to teach people in these villages that we work with their own languages. They could go to school and learn Arabic since that's what the system looks like. But we would like to have a plural tutor that can teach them in their own homes what their language are. Because we feel like until people know who they are and where they came from, it's going to be very hard to get them to stand up for who they are. So we would like to provide plural classes, Sonike classes, Wolof classes that the government hasn't been able to provide in people's homes by paying tutors to do that. So that's the organization I'm leading. We call Youth and Hope. Again, you could find us on Facebook. You could Google us. There is a website that's working on it now. And once we finish it, we can post it on Facebook and social media so people can go in and find out more about us and donate.
Okay. Do you have any other last words or anything that you wanted to say or anything like that?
The only other thing I wanted to add is the fact that someone might not have heard of Mauritania. Someone might have heard that Mauritania is an Arabic country. But the truth of the matter is Mauritania is a country that's composed of Bidans, White Moors, Haftanis, and then Black Mauritanians. Haftanis are black, and the Fulanis, the Soninkes, the Wolofs. And the regime is on people, and just because you live in a doesn't mean you shouldn't care. You should. Because like Martin Luther King used to say, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We all should be involved. We should all be held accountable, basically, to stand up against what's wrong, even if it's miles away. And we can all help. There's always a way to help and discrimination and evil in the world. Because in the end, we will be without a Mauritania like the one today.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's very true. I just want to thank you for taking the time out, and may God reward your patience for doing so. I really appreciate it, and all I can say is like keep up the fight, basically, and yeah, that's it.
Sure, I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I will
Thank
definitely
you.
keep the fight on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank
You
you.
too.